Close your eyes and listen to the sound of a castle breathing in the middle of the night. The stones sweat with the weight of centuries. The narrow windows drip with condensation, and the corridors carry faint echoes of prayers whispered by anxious mouths. Tonight is not an ordinary night. Torches flicker more violently than usual. Smoke curls into patterns on the vaulted ceilings, and the courtyard outside, usually dark and still, glows with the restless movements of servants running back and forth. Somewhere above all of this, in a high chamber that smells of blood, herbs, and sweat, a princess is about to arrive. The room is crowded. Ladies, noiding, hover like shadows, clutching bowls of warm water, cloths damp with lavender, sprigs of rosemary meant to ward off evil. A priest lingers at the door, his eyes darting toward the crucifix in his hands, murmuring blessings under his breath. He is not here just for prayer, but for power, to remind everyone that God watches this night closely as the king who paces the chamber below, impatient for news. The midwives, practiced and calm, work with their sleeves rolled up, their hands red from washing, their minds sharp with memory. They have delivered many children, but few under such pressure. This is not merely a birth, it is a state event, one that can shift alliances, stir wars, or bring uneasy peace. The queen lies upon the bed, her face pale and damp, her hair plastered to her forehead. She is exhausted, yet her eyes remain open, darting between the women around her. She knows this moment defines her worth more than any jewel, more than any crown she has worn. If she gives her husband a son, her power will rise. If she gives him a daughter, whispers will spread through the halls before dawn. Whispers of failure, of disappointment, of weakness. Even here, at the threshold between life and death, she is measured not as a woman, but as a vessel. The air thickens with the sounds of her labored breathing, with the creak of the wooden bed, with the hiss of a candle dripping onto iron. Outside the door, courtiers strain their ears, desperate for the signal that will change their futures. Some pray for a boy, imagining the future king who will secure their wealth. Others secretly hope for a girl, thinking of the marriages and treaties her hand could promise. But none of them pray for the child herself, not as a person, not as a soul. Already, before her first breath, she is a commodity. The midwife leans forward. There is a sudden cry, thin and sharp, slicing through the chamber like a blade. The baby is lifted into the smoky air, wet and writhing, her tiny fists clenched, as though she already knows she must fight. The women cheer softly, relieved, while the priest mutters a louder prayer, crossing himself, invoking protection from demons who, they believe, circle newborns like wolves circle lambs. A servant rushes to the window, ready to signal the waiting crowds below. But then the words are spoken, the words that weigh heavier than iron. It is a girl. The cheer falters. The room does not fall silent, but the tone shifts, less triumph, more duty. The queen exhales, closing her eyes, not with joy, but with something closer to dread. The midwife wraps the infant in linen, tucking her tightly, swaddled like a small parcel meant for delivery rather than nurture. The priest sprinkles holy water on her brow, whispering the name chosen long before her birth, a name heavy with ancestral memory and dynastic purpose. Her body is not yet an hour old, and already it carries centuries. Down below, In the great hall, the king receives the news. His jaw tightens. A daughter will not carry his banner into battle. A daughter will not continue his line without the risks of foreign blood mixing into his dynasty. Yet, he must smile before his court, for disappointment is a private luxury. Publicly, he thanks God, raises a goblet, and declares the birth a blessing. Privately, in his heart, the child has already failed him. Back in the chamber, the princess, though she does not yet know she is one, squirms in her swaddling. The cloth scratches against her skin, and her cries echo against the stone walls, thin, helpless, unanswered. She is placed into a cradle carved of oak, lined with rough blankets that smell of dust and herbs. Around her, the women return to their duties, wiping the bed, tending to the queen, whispering to one another about omens and futures. No one looks directly at the child for long. She is important, yes, but not in the way a beloved infant is important. She is important as a tool, as a symbol, as the beginning of negotiations that will shape nations. Her first night is not one of warmth. The room grows colder as the torches die down, shadows lengthening like fingers stretching across the walls. The midwife places a small charm above the cradle, an amulet meant to ward off the spirits believed to steal breath from babies. A candle burns low, dripping wax onto the wooden floor. The air is heavy with smoke, and in the distance, the restless sound of dogs barking in the courtyard drifts up through the stones. This is the lullaby of her first hours, the restless castle itself, sighing, groaning, shifting around her tiny form. The queen, too exhausted to speak, turns her face away from the cradle. Her heart aches, though she will not confess it. She knows she must not show too much tenderness. Too much love for a daughter is seen as weakness, as distraction. She will be told to recover quickly, to prepare again, to try once more for a boy. For now, she sleeps, and the baby is left in the care of women who see her less as flesh and more as duty. The priest lingers one last time, touching the baby's forehead with his thumb, drawing across with the last drops of holy water. He whispers blessings against the devil, against the witches who, in whispered tales, prowl at the edge of light. Then he departs, his robes brushing the floor, leaving behind the faint scent of incense. The midwives clean the chamber in silence, their faces expressionless. For them, this is routine. Another noble child, another night of cries and smoke. They do not wonder who she will become. They only know she must survive long enough to matter. Hours pass. The torches gutter, leaving the room in near darkness. Only the glow of the candle beside the cradle remains. The baby stirs, her lips opening, her chest rising and falling with fragile breaths. Outside, the castle groans, again a door slamming in the wind, a chain rattling in the stables, a guard calling to another. The world she has entered is not kind, not soft. It is a world of iron, of stone, of whispered prayers and unspoken fears. Somewhere below, servants gossip about her. They wonder what kind of dowry she will carry one day, which foreign prince she will be promised to before she can even speak. They imagine her beauty, her usefulness, her fate. None imagine her laughter, her dreams, her loneliness. Already, her life belongs to others. The dawn comes slowly, spilling pale light through the narrow windows. The candle beside her has melted into a pool of wax. The room smells of ashes and sweat, of linen soaked and dried. The queen stirs, wincing, but says nothing. The ladies in waiting murmur their congratulations half-heartedly, bowing before leaving to spread the news across the castle. The midwives carry away the bloodied cloths, their hands already reaching for fresh herbs to cover the scent. The cradle rocks once, twice, as the baby moves, her face scrunching as though she senses already the weight of expectation pressing down upon her. And so the first morning arrives for the princess locked in her destiny. She does not yet know she is watched, not for love, but for legacy. She does not yet know that her cries are not hers alone, but echoes that ripple through politics, through marriages, through wars not yet fought. All she knows is the roughness of linen against her skin, the fading warmth of her mother's body, and the chill of the stones that will be her world. This is not a fairy tale beginning. This is the lonely truth of a princess born in a castle, a truth of duty before breath, of disappointment before affection, of a life claimed by others before it has even begun. The first weeks of your life are a blur of ritual, of whispered prayers and careful hands, though you will never remember them. You are not held against your mother's chest for long stretches, not rocked endlessly by her heartbeat the way children of peasants are. You are placed instead in the arms of wet nurses, women chosen not for affection, but for their body's ability to feed you. They are strangers, peasants brought into the castle from nearby villages, sworn to secrecy and obedience. Their breasts sustain you, but their faces are never remembered in portraits. They are erased even as they give life. To the world, you belong not to them, but to the dynasty. Every feeding is watched. A lady-in-waiting hovers as the wet nurse settles you, ensuring that the act remains appropriate, distant, controlled. There is no intimacy, no whispered motherly lullaby, no tender murmur of a familiar voice. Instead, there is the creak of the chair, the cold draughts of stone seeping into the chamber, the hiss of a candle's flame. You grow not in warmth, but in surveillance. Your baptism comes quickly, for fear that you might die unblessed, your soul wandering forever in limbo. The chapel is dim, lit only by the trembling light of dozens of candles and the weak sun through stained glass. The priest holds you aloft, his voice booming with Latin that no one but he understands fully. Words meant to bind you to heaven and to the church. Holy water is dripped across your scalp, chilling your skin, and oil is traced upon your forehead. You cry at the sudden cold, your wail echoing through the vaulted arches like a small animal caught in stone. The gathered nobles nod with satisfaction, not at your health, but at the display of piety. You are an emblem of grace, not a child shivering under wet cloth. The celebrations afterward are not for you. Tables groan under the weight of roasted boar, venison, loaves of bread as heavy as stone, pitchers of ale and wine. Musicians play the same songs, sung for every christening before yours. The guests laugh, their bellies warm, their hands greasy, while you are carried away by a nurse to a small side chamber. You sleep as the hall roars with drunken voices, your cradle rocking gently under the hand of a servant. No one misses your presence. Your purpose has already been fulfilled for the day you have been baptized, paraded, consecrated. That is all that matters. In the months that follow, your world is narrow. You know the confines of your cradle, the muffled voices of women speaking above you, the faint chiming of bells marking prayers throughout the day. Occasionally, sunlight creeps through the window and touches your face, but more often it is the gloom of smoke and stone. Charms hang above your heads, small amulets filled with herbs, beads strung on cords, a carved piece of bone polished smooth. They are meant to protect you from spirits, from the night air that mother's whisper can strangle a child, from the witches said to slip into castles in the form of cats. You do not know these fears, but you live beneath their shadow. Illness hovers always. Fevers come quickly in cold stone rooms, and babies die often before their second winter. When you cough, the nurse lays her palm on your chest, murmuring to herself. When you cry without reason, a priest is summoned to sprinkle holy water again. When you grow restless at night, the nurse sings an old village song under her breath, though she is careful to hush when the lady-in-waiting enters. 4 noble children are not meant to hear peasant lullabies. You grow in fragments of sound half-finished prayers, scolding whispers, the distant clang of swords in the yard below. As the seasons turn, you are carried through the castle's spaces in the arms of women. You never touch the ground. You are lifted over cold floors, shielded from drafts by wool blankets, rocked when you whimper. You see faces lean down toward you, some smiling, some calculating. To the servants, you are a fragile miracle who must not be dropped. To the nobles, you are a piece of the kingdom's puzzle, to be fitted into place one day in another land. To your father, you are a disappointment wrapped in linen. To your mother, you are a burden she must try to love cautiously. And yet, you survive. Your first winter is brutal. The castle groans in the cold, fires struggling to keep up with the drafts that snake through every crack. Your cradle is moved closer to the hearth, though not too close, for fear of sparks catching on linen. The wet nurse keeps you swaddled tightly, layer upon layer, until you can barely move. You grow strong in stillness, your limbs bound against your own will, your body taught early that freedom of movement is not for you. Hours blur into days, days into months. Sometimes the only change is the sound of a church bell or the crackle of wood as it collapses into ash. Yet still you grow, your cries sharper, your eyes following the flicker of flame, your tiny fists reaching, searching. By your second year, you begin to understand the rhythm of your days. Morning comes with prayers, the wet nurse feeding you before you are washed with water so cold it makes you gasp. A scrap of linen dabs your face, scented faintly with herbs. You are dressed in miniature garments, not for comfort, but for statistini gowns of wool, embroidered with patterns you cannot see, colors chosen not for your taste, but for your rank. You toddle on uncertain legs across the rugs, and the women clap, delighted. You are precious, but not to be indulged too freely. You are encouraged to walk, but never to run. You are permitted to laugh, but not too loudly. Already the invisible threads of control weave around you. It is in these early years that you first encounter loneliness. Surrounded by bodies, you are rarely touched with true affection. The wet nurse holds you because she must. The ladies tidy you because it is their duty. Your mother visits, but her embraces are brief, her gaze often elsewhere. Your father visits less often still, his expression unreadable as he glances at you before returning to his affairs. You learn to find comfort not in people, but in the details of your chamber, the way the light catches dust in the air, the soft creak of the cradle as it rocks, the murmur of voices through a wall. These become your companions. Outside your small world, life in the castle churns with energy you only glimpse. Horses clatter in the yard. Soldiers shout as they train. Servants rush with baskets of bread and buckets of water. You hear it all, but see little. You are kept apart, wrapped in the bubble of noble isolation. The peasants' children run in the dirt, chasing each other, scraping knees, laughing until they fall into hay. You do not know that freedom. Instead, you are lifted into chairs, watched, corrected, and guided with invisible reins. When you fall ill, which happens often, your chamber becomes a theater of fear. Herbs are burned, candles lit, prayers recited endlessly. The wet nurse is interrogated. What did you eat? How often? At what hour? The women cross themselves, whispering about omens. Sometimes a healer is summoned, bringing vials of bitter liquid that are dripped into your mouth as you cry. Survival is not assumed. Every breath you take is a negotiation between your fragile body and the chill stone of the castle. And yet, again and again, you live. Each time you recover, the women marvel, calling you strong, though they mean lucky. Survival becomes your first act of rebellion. By the end of your toddler years, you have grown into a child who knows she is watched. Every step you take is measured. Every word you babble is noted. Your survival is no longer just a relief. It is an asset. You will be paraded before guests, your face scrubbed, your gown pressed, your hair tied back with ribbons. You are made to sit quietly on a chair while adults converse around you, their voices weaving plans for a future you cannot imagine. You learn early to sit still, to smile when commanded, to exist as a symbol long before you understand what symbols mean. And so your infancy passes, not in warmth or in play, but in vigilance. You grow within the narrow walls of stone, your life bound by ritual and by the watchful eyes of others. You are a child, but you are never simply a child. You are a princess, and even now, your body, your breath, your very survival belong not to you, but to a kingdom that sees in you not joy, but strategy. The first memories that cling to you are not of laughter, nor of the carefree games of childhood, but of structure, order, and ritual. You are scarcely past your 4th year when the nursery, once the entirety of your small universe, begins to loosen its grasp. The rocking cradles, the choral charms strung on silver, the soothing hum of the wet nurse are still near. Yet they recede as another world presses in, a world where your mind, your voice, even your posture are considered the raw materials of your destiny. The princess you are to become is being carved in slow, deliberate strokes, each lesson, each word, each restriction a chisel against soft stone. Your days begin before the sun is high. In the cool half-light that seeps through narrow windows cut into thick walls, the air carries the mingled scents of tallow candles burnt low in the night and the faint mildew of ancient stone. Before you are allowed bread or milk, there is prayer. Always prayer. The chaplain, a severe man with a drooping face and a voice like a droning hive, insists on it. You kneel, your knees pressed against the woven rushes that cover the cold floor, and repeat words in Latin that your tongue cannot yet fully understand. Pater, noster, qui is, in si. The syllables are strange, foreign, yet their repetition beats into you a rhythm as natural as your own heartbeat. Faith is not offered as comfort, it is imposed as duty. It is the scaffolding upon which every part of your education will rest. After prayers, the governess gathers you. She is neither cruel nor indulgent. She is an embodiment of expectation. Her touch at your shoulder is steady, guiding, but never tender. She oversees the careful arrangement of your garments for the day. Linen shift, small kirtle and woolen gown, simple compared to the finery that awaits you in later years, yet already heavy with symbolism. Every layer reminds you that your body is not your own, but a canvas upon which status and decorum are displayed. Once dressed, you are escorted to the solar, the women's chamber, where the first of your structured lessons begins. Your small hands, still clumsy with the urge to fidget, are placed around a wooden paddle, smooth from years of use. Upon its surface, covered by a thin, translucent sheet of polished horn, are the letters of the alphabet and the Lord's Prayer. The hornbook, as it is called, is your doorway into literacy. Its weight is awkward, its smell faintly of cattle, and yet it is treated with reverence, as though within its few lines lies the whole world. You trace the letters with a tentative finger, murmuring their sounds after your governess. To you, they are symbols without meaning, yet already they bind you to expectation. The expectation that you will recite scripture flawlessly, that your reading will be pious, that your words will be measured, never frivolous. Alongside reading, you are taught to copy letters with quill and ink. The quill is too large for your hand, its nib prone to tearing the rough parchment. Ink blots bloom like dark wounds across the page, and the governess sighs with patient resignation. Practice, she reminds you, is itself a virtue. Every mistake is a moral failing, every improvement a small act of grace. Thus, even as your letters stumble into crooked lines, you learn another, subtler lesson. Imperfection is shame. Discipline is survival. When the chaplain returns, lessons shift from letters to faith. He speaks to you of saints, especially women saints, whose lives ended in exquisite suffering. They are paraded before your imagination. Virgins who resisted kings, wives who endured cruel husbands, girls who walked serenely into fire. Their courage is presented as obedience, their deaths as triumphs. You are meant to see yourself reflected in them, to understand that your destiny too may be measured not by joy, but by sacrifice. The stories settle into you like heavy stones, shaping your earliest ideas of what it means to be a woman of royal blood. By mid-morning, your mind is wearied, but your body has had little chance to move. This, too, is corrected. You are led to a chamber where a stern dance master awaits. His cane taps out rhythm on the flagstones, sharp as the tolling of a bell. He demands that you move with precision, each step a pattern, each turn a demonstration of grace. It is not play, this dance, but a kind of geometry of the body. Your small slippers skid, your balance wavers, and once more you are corrected. He reminds you often with biting words that a princess must glide, never stumble, that the eyes of ambassadors, nobles, and rival queens will one day rest on your every motion. One day, a misstep might be interpreted as insult or weakness. So you are drilled again and again, until the rhythm of the dance is as relentless as the rhythm of prayer. Music follows dance. A lute is set into your lap, its strings cool and resistant beneath your small fingers. At first, the notes you produce are little more than dissonant plucking, but the music master insists that persistence will bring harmony. Your voice, too, is exercised, not in songs of childhood, but in ballads of courtly love and chivalric duty. These are not stories for children, but they are given to you nonetheless, shaping your imagination with tales of knights and noble ladies, of loyalty, of sacrifice, of honor. Even your voice is trained as an instrument for diplomacy, a means of pleasing and impressing those who will one day judge you when you are finally permitted a pause. The break is not true freedom. You are brought back to the solar where embroidery frames await. Needle and thread are pressed into your hands, and you begin the slow, painstaking work of making small stitches on scraps of linen. At first, you prick your fingers, often little beads of blood smudging the fabric. The ladies laugh softly, correct your grip, and urge you to try again. The hours pass in repetition. Stitch, pull, knot. The cloth is plain, the designs simple, but you are told that patience, neatness, and silence are the true virtues this work cultivates. In time, your stitches will contribute to great tapestries or altar cloths, but for now, they are lessons in endurance, in the art of being occupied, in the quiet obliteration of self into duty. The day stretches long, punctuated by meals that are themselves rituals. You are taught how to sit, how to lift a cup, how to chew and swallow in silence. Every movement is an opportunity for correction. A spill, a clumsy grasp of the knife, a bite taken to hastily each small error is met with a murmur of disapproval. Eating is not nourishment. It is performance, a rehearsal for the feasts you will one day attend, where nobles and foreign dignitaries will watch you as keenly as they watch your father. Even hunger, even taste is disciplined into obedience. In rare moments between lessons, your eyes wander to the narrow windows of the castle. Beyond them, you glimpse the bailey, where the children of servants chase one another, their laughter sharp in the cold air. They tumble, they shout, they dirty their hands and faces. Their freedom is intoxicating, but it is also forbidden. You are reminded that you are not like them. You do not belong to yourself. You belong to the kingdom, to the bloodline, to the negotiations yet to come. The governess redirects your gaze to the parchment or the needle, and the glimpse of joy beyond the walls fades into memory. Evening comes, and with it, more prayers. Candles are lit, the flickering light casting your small shadow against the walls. The chaplain's voice drones once more, and you repeat his Latin with weary precision. Your body aches from dancing, your fingers from stitching, your eyes from tracing letters. Yet there is no release. Only when the final amen is whispered are you led back to the nursery, back to the carved cradle that has been replaced now by a small bed. The wet nurse is long gone, her duties fulfilled. She was dismissed without ceremony. In her place, attendants fuss with your blankets, tuck you in, and whisper perfunctory blessings. Their care is professional, not affectionate. You are swaddled not in love, but in duty, in the darkness. You stare at the canopy above, its fabric heavy with embroidered saints and holy symbols. You wonder if they stare back, if they judge you as harshly as every tutor and attendant has throughout the day. Sleep comes slowly, pulled over you, not by comfort, but by exhaustion. Dreams are fragmented, filled with images of saints' martyrdoms, of letters you cannot yet master, of dancers spinning endlessly while you stumble to keep pace. The next day begins the same, and the one after that, and the one after that. Routine is the crucible in which you are being remade. You do not yet know the depth of its purpose, but you feel it pressing upon you, shaping you. The laughter of the stable boys becomes a distant echo. The warmth of your mother's arms remains a fleeting memory. What you have instead is structure, prayer, language, music, dance, sewing, etiquette, accounts, repetition without end. The girl who might have run in the fields is receding, piece by piece, and in her place the princess is being formed, not by choice, not by love, but by the relentless weight of expectation, a weight you will carry for the rest of your life. The first notes of dawn slip into your chamber, the faint light dragging you from uneasy dreams. You do not wake as other children wake. There is no rushing to a warm hearth in simple clothes, no tumbling onto the floor with toys, or chasing sunlight with bare feet. Your day begins with ritual, and every ritual is designed to remind you of who you are and what you are meant to become. The moment your eyes open, your body belongs not to you, but to expectation. Your ladies-in-waiting glide in like shadows, quiet but efficient, their arms already laden with the linen and velvet that will cage you for the rest of the day. You are lifted, bathed quickly in lukewarm water that chills more than it warms, and swaddled in layers that announce your status even before you utter a word. A simple chemise, stockings bound with garters, then the stiff-fitted underdress, laced tight across your chest so that your shoulders are forced back and your spine is held unnaturally straight. Already you cannot breathe deeply. Already you are aware of the invisible hands shaping you, molding your posture, trimming away the careless freedom of childhood. Breakfast is taken not as comfort, but as performance. You sit upright at a small table, your governess perched beside you, eyes keen for any slip in manners. The bread is coarse, the milk watered. Sometimes a thin broth appears, but taste is irrelevant. What matters is how you lift the spoon, how you chew, how your lips never smack, how your elbows never wander from their precise angle. Even the act of swallowing is judged. You learn early that your body is on constant display. The servants, the attendants, the tutors who hover at the edges of the room, all of them are watching. You are not allowed the blissful anonymity of other children. From the moment you draw breath, you are lesson, symbol, and promise. Then the lessons themselves begin. The chapel is your first classroom. Its cold stones seep through your shoes, its air thick with incense and whispers of Latin prayers. You kneel on the hard floor until your knees ache, repeating words you barely understand, mouthing verses that will be demanded of you daily. Your tutor, a cleric with a thin face and sharper patience, guides your small hand as you trace letters onto a wax tablet. The alphabet is not a curiosity, it is duty. You learn to recite psalms, to copy prayers from a book of hours, so richly painted you fear to smudge its sacred images. Scripture is not a story to you, it is commandment, and through it you are reminded that obedience is holy, silence is noble, and humility is salvation. By mid-morning, your voice is hoarse from repetition, yet there is no pause. Another tutor sweeps in, this time bearing the strange, rolling sounds of French. The words taste foreign on your tongue, but you are told this language will be your bridge to a future husband in a distant court. You do not yet know his face, his name, or his land, but already you are being carved into his likeness. Every sentence you stumble through is a step closer to him. Every correction, every impatient sigh of your tutor reminds you that even your voice is not your onit, belongs to diplomacy. When your mind is heavy, your hands are put to work. You are guided into the solar, a sunlit room reserved for women, where your governess and ladies-in-waiting sit with needles flashing in the light. At first, the linen resists you. The thread tangles. Your stitches are uneven. The women murmur, some in amusement, some in quiet disapproval. They press your small hands into steadiness, teaching you to make the thread obey. Over time, the cloth begins to bloom with patterns, flowers, vines, the curling edges of letters end. You realize that this is not pastime, but discipline. Your stitches are counted, measured, criticized. They are lessons in patience, silence, and submission. Every thread is a reminder that an idle princess is a dangerous one, and beauty woven into fabric is proof of virtue made visible. Afternoons are filled with sound. A music master arrives, carrying the harp or lute, instruments too large for your small frame, yet pressed into your hands nonetheless. You learn scales, the plucking of delicate strings, the positioning of your fingers until they ache. You are told that your song will one day charm courtiers, that your voice must soothe and enchant. Never falter, never strain. The melodies are sweet, but the pressure is relentless. Music is not joy, but ornament, another tool to be wielded when your fingers slip, when your voice cracks. The disappointment in your tutor's eyes weighs heavier than the instrument itself. Then comes the dance master, his steps sharp, his cane sharper still when tapped against the floor to correct your faltering rhythm. The dances are intricate, patterns of geometry traced on the stone, where one wrong move can mean humiliation. You stumble often, your feet tangling in skirts that are already too long, your cheeks burning as you are scolded again. Dance is not play, it is display. It is proof that your body can move with grace under scrutiny, that you can glide rather than stumble, that you can be an ornament as flawless in motion as in stillness. Every turn, every bow is a rehearsal for feasts and ceremonies you are years away from attending. Yet already the stakes feel immense. Evenings turn towards management, while other children might tumble into bed after supper. You are led to storerooms, to kitchens, to the chambers where endless accounts are kept. You shadow your governess or your mother if she is able, learning how much bread feeds a household, how many candles burn in a week, how much spice is needed to season meat for a feast. You do not fully grasp the numbers, but you are made to listen, to absorb, to understand that a castle is a machine of impossible complexity, and one day you will be expected to oversee it with flawless precision. You will be mistress, not of a home, but of an empire under one roof, where every servant, every loaf, every coin must be counted and commanded. Already the weight of invisible ledgers presses against your mind, preparing you for a future where even your domestic sphere is empire in miniature. By the time you are led back to your chamber, the day has carved deep grooves into you. Your body is tired, your back stiff from enforced posture, your eyes blurred from reading by candlelight. Yet still, there are rituals to end the day. Your hair is brushed, braided, coiled tight, a crown in preparation for the crown you do not yet wear. Your gown is unlaced, your chemise clings to your skin, and you are laid down not with toys or stories, but with whispered prayers. Your nurse sits nearby, reciting softly, ensuring your last thoughts are of duty and piety, not play. The sounds of laughter from the bailey sometimes drift in through the narrow window, children of servants chasing each other, shrieking with joy. You hear them, and for a moment something inside you aches with longing. But the ache is quickly buried under exhaustion and expectation. You close your eyes, and the stone walls close tighter around you. Days fold into weeks, weeks into years. The rhythm never changes. Wake, pray, study, stitch, play music, dance, oversee, sleep. You are polished, buffed, shaped like a gem, each facet refined until no rough edges remain. And yet, in the quiet moments, when you prick your finger on a needle and watch the tiny bead of blood rise, when your voice breaks mid-song and you taste salt instead of melody, you remember that beneath the princess there is still a child who is slowly disappearing piece by piece into ritual and routine. The girl fades, the symbol shines brighter, and you begin to understand the lonely truth. You were never meant to simply live. You were meant to represent, to embody, to endure. As the candles burn low and shadows climb the walls of your chamber, you lie still, hands folded, the weight of fabric heavy even in sleep. Tomorrow the cycle will begin again. Tomorrow the tutors will test you. The governess will correct you. The ladies will lace you tighter, and the dance master will scold you once more. Tomorrow you will polish the princess further, bury the child deeper, and tomorrow you will take another step toward the life that was chosen for you long before you drew your first breath. You are 10 now, and though the seasons still turn beyond the stone walls, time no longer feels like freedom. Each passing year presses you deeper into a mold you did not choose. Your body is growing, shifting, and with it the scrutiny grows sharper. Where once the lessons and drills were designed to polish a child into discipline, now they begin to chisel away at every edge of individuality to craft the figure of a future consort. You are less a daughter of the castle and more a figure in its pageant, a carefully curated emblem of piety, obedience, and promise. The mornings have grown longer and heavier. Your day begins earlier, your body shaken awake by the insistent rustle of skirts as attendants enter your chamber. There is no room for drowsy eyes or lazy movements now. You are taught that composure must be immediate, that even in waking you must present discipline. The linen chemise feels rougher than it once did, the wool stockings tighter, the laces of your undergown pulling harder against your ribs. It is not your imagination. Your governess has begun instructing the ladies to draw the laces tighter, insisting that a straight spine and narrow waist are outward signs of an inner purity. Each tug of the cord is a reminder that your body no longer belongs to you. It is a canvas painted for others. At breakfast, your plate is watched as closely as your face. The bread is coarse, the pottage steaming, the ale thin. You are encouraged to eat daintily, sparingly, as though hunger itself is an indulgence. Too much food is a sin of the flesh, and gluttony unbecomes a princess. Your governess comments often on posture while dining, on how you lift bread, on how you wipe your lips. The other children of the castle pages, squires, even the daughters of knights seeked more freely, more quickly. You envy them the ability to chew without correction, to laugh with mouths full. But envy is dangerous. You bury it beneath a careful smile. Education now presses harder, sharper. Latin is no longer just the language of psalms, but of philosophy. You are made to translate sentences from Augustine, Cicero, and Aquinas. The words are dense, their meanings knotted, but you are told to persist. Latin is not only for prayer, it is for correspondence, for treaties, for marriage contracts. The words you write in careful ink on parchment are not your own thoughts, but the bones of arguments you may one day need to recite in another court, in another tongue, before strangers who will decide your worth. French drills continue, stricter now, with entire afternoons spent speaking nothing else. Sometimes a phrase slips from your lips unconsciously in your native language, and the reprimand comes swiftly. A sharp glance, a snapped correction, a reminder that weakness in language is weakness in diplomacy. That Solar is no longer a place of soft correction and clucking tongues. It is an atelier of silence and rigor. Your embroidery has grown more complex, your work inspected by visitors, sometimes even by your mother, who nods with faint approval when the stitches are neat. You have contributed to altar cloths that now lie on the chapel table, their edges kissed by priests during Mass. Your needle has become your signature, though it feels more like a chain. Hours vanish into patterns of silk and gold, and though your eyes ache and your back stiffens, you are told this labor is what makes you a woman of virtue. Music has turned from lesson into performance. You are summoned more often to play for gathering small dinners, visits from minor nobles, or the arrival of foreign envoys. The harp feels heavier in your lap now, its strings less forgiving. You pluck notes with careful precision, smile faintly when you finish, bow your head as is expected. Applause is soft, polite, never for you as a person, but for the symbol you represent, the princess who has been trained well, who carries herself with refinement. You sometimes wonder if they hear the music at all, or only the echoes of their own expectations. Dance has become even more relentless. The figures are complex, the corrections sharper. The dance master no longer tolerates missteps. His cane strikes the floor in loud, impatient rhythm, each tap a reminder of how easily grace can slip into disgrace. You move in heavy skirts, your feet aching, your breath shallow, your smile fixed. There is no joy in the movement, only precision. And precision is demanded because you may one day be asked to dance before a foreign king, before strangers who will decide the fate of alliances based on how lightly you seem to glide. Etiquette is its own prison now. Where once it was a series of lessons, now it is an invisible net that encases every waking moment. You bow more deeply. You curtsy with measured elegance. You learn to speak not with words of your own, but with carefully scripted phrases of courtesy. You are drilled in how to address not only nobles, but bishops, abbots, visiting dignitaries. You are warned that one misplaced title, one incorrectly angled bow, could spark whispers of incompetence, even insult. You are told that insult could unravel alliances, cost lives, and so each gesture feels like a dagger edge. You tread carefully, constantly aware. Your afternoons bring you into closer orbit with the machinery of court. You stand behind your mother as she receives guests, observing as she greets them with words carefully chosen, expressions carefully measured. You are told later what she did right, what she did wrong, as though even queens are always on trial. You overhear snatches of conversation about you, how you are growing, how your lessons progress, how soon you might be betrothed. You hear foreign names linked to yours, places you cannot imagine, climates you cannot picture. Each whisper leaves you restless at night, staring at the canopy above your bed, wondering whose language you will be forced to master next, whose house you will be folded into like another garment you did not choose. Meals in the great hall are theater. Your seat has shifted closer to the dais, your presence more prominent. You feel eyes on you constantly. You chew slowly, swallow carefully, move your knife as though every movement were part of a ritual. The roar of conversation from the lower tables feels distant, like another world. Sometimes laughter rises in waves, wild and unrestrained. You glance at it, longing, and then remember yourself. Your smile is thin, polite, rehearsed. You taste little of what you eat. The food fills your belly, but not your hunger. Evenings weigh heavier now. You follow your mother into the storerooms, the kitchens, the ledgers. You learn not only to count sacks of grain, but to anticipate how many will spoil, how many must be stored for the feast days, how many could be lost to rats. You are shown how to inspect the quality of salt, how to judge the freshness of fish, how to negotiate with a merchant without appearing either desperate or arrogant. These are skills of survival, though they are dressed as skills of grace. You understand more clearly now, running a household is not merely domestic. It is political. It is a display of competence that reflects on the entire dynasty. Your needlework, your music, your posture are for show, but your ability to provision, to manage, to command servants, these are the bones that keep a kingdom upright. Your governess comments on the way your figure changes, how your dresses must be altered, how your waist must be singed more tightly to present the right silhouette. You hear murmurs of maidenhood, of the coming years when your body will signal readiness for marriage. It is spoken of clinically, coldly, as though you are an object being prepared for auction. You press your hands to your ribs, feel the tightness of your stays, and wonder how much of you will be left when the laces are finally loosened. Sometimes you dream of escape knot, of running through the bailey, but of silence, of solitude, of a space where no one watches how you eat, how you stitch, how you breathe. But even in dreams, the walls remain. Even in sleep, you feel the weight of expectation pressing down, as though the castle itself is sculpting you brick by brick, until you are indistinguishable from its stone. You are 10, nearly 11, and the innocence that once shielded you has crumbled. You know now what you are meant to be. You are meant to be displayed, to be traded, to be perfected. You are meant to be flawless in prayer, in language, in stitch, in song, in gesture, in silence. You are not meant to want. You are not meant to choose. You are not meant to be. The lonely truth of princesses locked in castles is becoming sharper with every year. You are not locked away from danger. You are locked away to be preserved, honed, and prepared for a future that is not yours. The girl you were has already been buried beneath velvet, beneath Latin declensions, beneath dance steps and stitches. What remains is the figure they have created, Dan. Though she bears your face, she does not feel like you. By the time you approach your 12th year, there is no mistaking the fact that you are no longer a child. The shift is subtle at first, 10 extra layer of scrutiny in the way your governess corrects your posture, a sharper edge to the chaplain's lectures, the hush of whispers that seem to surround your every step. Your body, which once felt like your own, now becomes a canvas upon which expectation is painted more boldly than ever before. The dresses grow heavier, the laces tighter, the fabrics more restrictive. What once felt ceremonial now feels like a second skin, confining, reshaping you into an image that speaks not of innocence, but of looming maturity. You do not run anymore. You glide. You do not chatter without thought. You measure each word, aware that even a misplaced syllable can travel farther than you ever could. The great hall that once intimidated you as a child now feels like a stage. When foreign envoys arrive, you are summoned not to speak, but to sit, to observe, to smile when instructed, and bow your head with grace. Yet, even in silence, you are communicating. The curve of your hand resting lightly upon the table, the angle of your gaze as you look upon your father or mother, the way you rise and depart the chamber. Every gesture is a signal read by watchful eyes. You are learning the language of diplomacy without uttering a sound. When you practice with your tutors in the solar, they remind you a princess is a performance. It is not simply what you say, but how you occupy space, how you silence a room without raising your voice, how you embody the wealth and power of your dynasty simply by existing within its walls. The lessons you once found arduous needlework, embroidery, the endless repetition of Latin conjugations, are now honed into a different kind of purpose. You embroider altar cloths not because your stitches are needed, but because an envoy's wife may one day admire the precision of your hand and take it as proof of discipline. You sing not merely for melody, but to charm, to project sweetness and civility, to hint at a cultivated soul. The dance lessons, once a torture of geometry performed in velvet, now take on new stakes. You are told often that a single misstep during a feast could humiliate not only yourself, but your family's honor before foreign guests. Every turn, every bow, every glance upward beneath lowered lashes is part of an elaborate script you are drilled to perfect. Your tutors are relentless, their patience worn thin. They know, as you are beginning to know, that your body is no longer just yours. It is a stage upon which kingdoms will rise or fall. Yet it is not only your tutors who remind you of this. The whispers follow you everywhere. You overhear them in corridors, carried on the rustle of skirts and the shuffle of servants. Discussions of dowries, alliances, titles. Sometimes they do not even lower their voices when you enter a room. They speak of you as though you were already absent, a coin already placed upon the gaming table of European courts. You are to be matched, traded, bartered for influence. At 12, the first tentative negotiations may already be underway. A letter dispatched, a reply anticipated. You do not know his name, but you know he exists, somewhere beyond the walls of your castle. A boy, or perhaps a man, who will one day become your husband. He does not yet know you, nor you him, but already Your lives are being tethered by invisible strings pulled by men who weigh kingdoms in their hands like dice. Your governess begins to remind you more sharply of your deportment. She corrects not only your handwriting, but the way your lips form words, the way your head inclines in acknowledgement, the rhythm of your curtsy. She scolds you if your laugh rings too loudly, or if your steps echo too heavily upon the stone floors. Everything must be measured, everything restrained. There is no room for girlish spontaneity, no allowance for error. Even your silences are practiced. You are expected to sit through long audiences without shifting, without letting your gaze wander. The stillness is exhausting, but it becomes second nature. By the time you rise, your legs ache, yet you show nothing. You learn to conceal discomfort the way soldiers conceal fear before battle. This is your battlefield, and composure is your armor. There are moments, in the rare solitude of your chamber, when you catch yourself in the blurred reflection of a polished metal mirror and wonder where the girl has gone. You remember fragments the sound of laughter from the stable boys, the brief taste of freedom when you ran down a corridor too quickly and were chastised for it, the warmth of your nursemaid's embrace when you were small. Those memories feel like contraband now, dangerous luxuries smuggled into a life where they no longer belong. The princess is all that remains, and the girl has been gently, systematically erased. Yet you are not blind to what happens beyond your chamber. You see the other children, the daughters of servants, the sons of guards, chasing each other in the bailey, faces flushed with the joy of unstructured play. Sometimes you watch them from the narrow windows, your breath fogging the cold glass, a prisoner observing a world that was never hers to claim. They run barefoot, their clothes patched and simple, yet they are freer than you could ever be. You are robed in velvet, your fingers adorned with rings, your hair braided into elaborate coils, but none of it grants you freedom. Instead, it tightens around you like a net. As adolescence deepens, so too does your awareness of how fragile your position is. Every smile, every bow, every carefully restrained gesture is designed to present an image of perfection. But beneath the image lies fear. Fear of slipping, of faltering, of revealing too much of yourself. You begin to understand why your governess insists upon endless repetition, so that instinct replaces thought, so that the performance becomes second nature. You will not have the luxury of hesitation when you are presented before foreign courts. Your father's envoys will speak of your beauty, your refinement, your discipline, but it will be up to you to embody those words so fully that no one dares question them at night. As candles burn low and your ladies unlace the gown that has confined you all day, you feel the marks left upon your skin by tight laces and stiff fabrics. They are reminders, physical inscriptions of duty etched into flesh. You lie in bed, staring at the carved beams above, and wonder whether your future husband's hall will feel any different, whether the air will be less heavy, whether laughter will ever come unbidden again. But even as the thought arises, you know the truth. The halls may change, the language may differ, the faces may be new, but the cage will remain. You are not being prepared for freedom, but for another set of walls, another set of expectations, another performance to be mastered in the quiet of those moments. When the castle sleeps and even the guard's footsteps fade, you allow yourself one act of rebellion. You remember the girl. You imagine running barefoot across the bailey, hair loose, face turned upward toward the open sky. You hold the image tightly, fiercely, as if it were a talisman. For you know that once you cross the threshold into womanhood, once the negotiations are sealed and the marriage arranged, that girl will vanish entirely. The princess will remain, polished, poised, perfect. But the girl, she will live only in stolen dreams, fading echoes of a life never lived. The seasons shift and the air of the castle changes. You are no longer the small girl of the nursery, no longer even the careful adolescent of tight gowns and endless lessons. Your body itself announces a transformation. The ladies in waiting notice first, whispering in doorways when they think you cannot hear. Your mother's gaze lingers longer on you now, measuring, calculating, as though every inch of you has suddenly become evidence that the long-prepared moment is near. The change is not only in your reflection, though your reflection too betrays the signs. A face sharper, stretched with a maturity that carries hints of both vulnerability and strength. Eyes deeper, a mouth less innocent. Your body aches in strange ways, sometimes pulling you down into silence, other times making you restless with energy. This is womanhood. And in your world, it is not a private journey, but a political milestone. The conversations around you shift, though they still pretend not to be about you. At meals, you overhear ambassadors mentioning alliances in veiled words. Your tutors speak more carefully, as if every lesson is no longer just for knowledge, but for performance. The way you will present yourself to another court. When you pray now, the chaplain looks at you not only as a soul entrusted to God, but as a vessel for an entire family's hopes. Your every step has begun to echo louder in the hallways, because with each one you are walking toward a fate that has been waiting for you since your very first breath. The rituals of your education grow sharper, more defined. You are taught not merely to read Latin, but to write letters in it. And those letters are no longer exercises. They are drafts for what you may one day send to foreign courts. Introductions written with a hand steady enough to betray neither fear nor hesitation. Your dance lessons shift from playful practice to rehearsals for formal displays, where each step and turn is observed by watchful eyes measuring your worth. You are asked to stand longer, to smile more carefully, to fold your hands in precise patterns of elegance. Everything is a rehearsal, a performance, a preview of the woman you are expected to be. And then the whispers grow louder. There is talk of envoys from a distant land, a duke, perhaps, or a prince, whose kingdom touches borders that are both threatening and promising. You hear fragments of his name in the corridors. You see maps unfurled across the long oak table in the council chamber. When the heavy doors are left carelessly open, you know without being told they are speaking of you. You are a bargaining chip, the most delicate yet powerful one. A treaty in flesh, a promise dressed in velvet. The realization seeps into you, not in a single blow, but in countless small stabs, until you can no longer deny the truth. Your ladies try to soften it. They tell you that he is handsome, that his land is rich, that you will be admired and envied. They tell you stories of other princesses who went on to be adored queens. But they also tighten your laces more firmly each morning, as if squeezing you into a mold. They adjust your veil with more precision, as if any imperfection would betray weakness. Their reassurances are wrapped in duty. and you can feel the weight of it pressing against your skin. One evening, you are called to your mother's chamber. The fire burns low, filling the room with a dim orange glow. She sits by the hearth, her gown heavy with embroidery, her face pale and tired, but her eyes fierce. She motions you closer and speaks softly, but every word carries the iron of command. You are to prepare yourself, she says. There are visitors coming, and though they will speak of trade, of boundaries, of treaties, the true subject is you. You must walk into the hall with grace. You must speak only when spoken to. You must let them see not only your beauty, but your obedience, your silence, your readiness. She reaches out and touches your cheek, and for a fleeting second you feel something warmer than politics, a trace of tenderness, a mother's quiet sorrow. But then her hand falls away, and the firelight makes her face unreadable again. The days that follow are filled with subtle rehearsals. You are dressed in the finest gowns, jewels heavy against your skin, hair coiled into elaborate designs that make your neck ache. You sit at the high table in the great hall, your back straight, your eyes lowered, just enough to appear modest but not weak. You are asked questions, carefully chosen, about your prayers, your music, your embroidery. You answer softly, every word weighed, every gesture deliberate. You are no longer a child. You are a symbol. And the men across the table, the envoys in their fur-lined cloaks and polished boots, study you as if you were a rare artifact, one to be purchased, one to be claimed. At night, you lie awake in your bed, the canopy above you like a heavy sky. The rushes on the floor crackle faintly with the scurrying of unseen creatures, the castle settling into its silence. You press your hands together and try to pray, but the words tangle in your mouth. You ask for strength, for clarity, for some glimmer of choice in a life that feels already carved from stone. You imagine the face of the man whose name you have heard only in whispers, whose life will soon entangle with yours more tightly than any tutor's lesson or mother's instruction. You wonder if he lies awake too, if he knows your name, if he imagines you as anything more than a pawn. Morning brings no answers, only more preparation. You practice music until your fingers ache. You stitch until your eyes blur. You repeat prayers until your voice is hoarse. Every action is another layer of armor, another layer of performance. The castle hums with anticipation, the servants polishing silver until it gleams, tapestries shaken out, banners unfurled. The arrival of envoys is not just a visit, it is a display, a stage on which your future will be silently negotiated. And then they come. The courtyard fills with the sound of hooves, the clatter of armor, the shouts of heralds. You watch from a narrow window as horses are led in, cloaks dusted with travel, banners rippling in the wind. These are not fairy tale knights. They are men of calculation, of ambition, of power. They dismount with practiced grace and are ushered into the great hall where your father waits with the gravitas of kingship. You are summoned soon after. Your ladies fuss over every fold of your gown, every strand of hair, until you are once again less a girl than an image of perfection. The hall is filled with voices, deep and formal. When you enter, the sound shifts. Eyes turn. You walk slowly, the weight of velvet pulling at your shoulders, the jeweled girdle clinking softly with each step. You feel the air grow heavier, as the envoys bow, as they measure you with their eyes. You sit, you smile, you answer when spoken to, and all the while you know that this is not a conversation. It is a transaction, one in which your voice has no real place. You are the subject and the object both, spoken of, but not truly speaking. That night, when the hall is empty again, you return to your chamber. The candles flicker, shadows stretch across the stone walls. You remove your jewels, one by one, until you are left only with the linen shift against your skin. You stand before the small metal mirror, your reflection dim, your face blurred. You whisper your own name softly, as if reminding yourself that beneath the silk and gold and endless rituals, you are still someone. But the sound feels fragile, almost lost in the vast silence of the castle. This is the beginning of the end of childhood. The world has shifted around you, and you are caught in its turning. Your destiny is no longer distant. It breathes in the same halls you walk. It sits at the same tables. It writes itself in letters, sealed with wax and sent across seas. You can feel it pressing closer, and though you are dressed in splendor, though you are praised for your grace, a deep loneliness curls in your chest. The loneliness of being priceless and powerless at the same time. The night before your departure, the castle feels different. It hums with the same sounds it always has. The crackle of torches in the hallways, the distant scrape of kitchen knives on wood, the occasional whinny of a horse from the stable's butt beneath. Those ordinary notes lies a tension so thick it pulls at the air. Every corner seems to hold its breath. The walls, which you once thought mute and lifeless, feel almost alive, as if they too know that you are about to leave them behind. For years you resented their cold stone embrace, the way they pressed you into a life defined by expectation. Yet now, with your departure certain, you find yourself gazing at the mossy gray blocks with something akin to longing, as if each stone carries a fragment of your childhood. You run your hand along the uneven wall in your chamber, fingers brushing against the grooves worn smooth by time, and whisper silently, as though the walls might answer back. The final days before your farewell blur into a strange parade of ceremony. There is a feast, though it does not feel like a celebration. It is held in the great hall, which has been dressed in banners bearing your family's crest, deep crimson and gold. The smell of roasting boar and spiced wine fills the air, but you can barely swallow the morsels placed before you. Every eye is on you, every smile a little too wide, every toast a little too loud, as though noise and cheer could mask the truth of what is happening. You are not leaving by choice. You are being given away, traded like precious metal, hammered into the shape of a bride. The minstrels play love songs, their lutes plucking delicate threads of melody, but the words fall strangely in your ears. Love has no part in this story. Not yet. Across the long tables, knights raise goblets of mead, their armor catching the flickering firelight. Their cheers sound hollow. The ladies of the court wear gowns in your honor, colors chosen to complement your own dress of pale blue velvet. Yet their eyes glint with speculation, envy, perhaps pity. You have become the evening's entertainment and its warning, the living symbol of what it means to be born a princess at your side. Your mother sits stiff and regal. Her smile does not waver, though her eyes are rimmed with the faint red of sleepless nights. She does not touch you, often rarely has. In truth, but tonight her hand finds yours beneath the table, squeezing gently, as if to say what she cannot in public. Across the hall, your father raises his cup when your name is spoken, his jaw tight, his words clipped. He is proud, of course, proud to see his daughter elevated to a match that strengthens his realm. But there is something else, Turleaf, perhaps, that his duty toward you is nearly complete. You are a piece in the game, and soon you will be moved to the board of another kingdom. His gaze lingers on you for only a moment before returning to his counselors. The feast stretches late into the night, but you taste none of it. The spiced pears, the honeyed almonds, the roasted game, all of it could have been ash. What you remember most is the feeling of the wooden bench beneath you, hard and unyielding, as if pressing the truth into your bones. You are leaving, and nothing you say or do will stop it. The following morning dawns gray, a pale light creeping through the high, narrow windows of your chamber. The ladies who have dressed you since childhood move with an unusual silence, their fingers deft as they fasten the last jewels into your hair. Their faces remain neutral as they have been trained, but you see the flicker of something softer when they think you are not looking. One of them, the oldest, pauses longer than usual when lacing your gown. She has known you since you were swaddled, rocked you when you could not sleep, whispered lullabies in the nursery. Today her lips press together so tightly that her knuckles whiten as she pulls the cord snug around your waist. She says nothing, but her silence is louder than any farewell. Then comes the private audience. Your mother and father summon you to their solar, the air heavy with incense and the faint sweetness of rosewater. Your mother stands near the window, her gown a waterfall of green silk, her veil cascading down her shoulders. She looks at you long and hard, her eyes glassy yet steady, and when she speaks, her voice is firm. She tells you to be obedient, to be gracious, to remember that you carry the honor of your house wherever you go. She does not speak of happiness, nor of love, only of duty. Her words are a cloak she drapes over your shoulders, heavy, suffocating, but inescapable. Your father is different. His voice is clipped, his tone brisk. He reminds you that your role is to secure peace, to bind to lands with your marriage. He warns you not to shame him, not to falter under the weight of expectation. When he finishes, he places his hand briefly on your shoulder, a touch that is both affectionate and distant, a gesture that seals the transaction more than it comforts the daughter. In that moment, you feel the truth with a clarity that chills you. You are not being escorted to a new life. You are being delivered. That afternoon, the chapel bells toll in your honor. You kneel at the altar, the cool stone pressing against your knees as the priest chants prayers for your journey, for your fertility, for your obedience. The scent of beeswax and incense curls around you, dizzying, heavy. You bow your head and whisper the words you have been taught, though your heart thrums with confusion. You want to believe in the blessings spoken over you, want to trust that God has chosen this path. But in the silence between chants, a question rises that you dare not voice. If God has chosen this, why does it feel like exile? Evening falls, and with it comes the final ritual of farewell. The great hall is crowded once more, but the atmosphere is different from the night before. There is a gravity now, a solemnity beneath the chatter. This is the last time you will sit beneath the banners of your house, the last time you will dine at your father's table. Servants move like shadows, carrying in platters of bread and wine, but no one seems hungry. You hear laughter, but it rings brittle. Every gesture is weighted with the knowledge that tomorrow you will be gone when the meal ends. Your father stands, lifting his cup high. His voice echoes across the hall as he speaks of alliances and honor, of the future you will help secure. His words are strong, proud, but as you glance across the room, you see faces that betray something else, sorrow, perhaps, or the faint guilt of those who watch a sacrifice made on their behalf. You rise when you are expected to, bow when the toasts demand it, smile when the eyes of the court turn to you. But inside, you are breaking. The walls that once confined you now feel like arms that have held you close. Tomorrow, when you pass through the gates, you will no longer be their daughter, their princess. You will belong to another land, another man, another destiny. That night, long after the candles are snuffed and the halls fall silent, you lie awake in your bed. The canopy above you feels both familiar and foreign. The carved wood, a shadowy forest overhead. You close your eyes and try to memorize the sounds. The faint drip of water from the stones, the flutter of the tapestry in the draught, the distant rumble of the watchman's boots on the walls. Each noise is a fragment of home, and you know you will never hear them again in the same way. Tears slip silently down your cheeks, not from fear alone, but from the aching knowledge that even the cage you once despised can feel like sanctuary when it is about to be lost. When dawn comes, you will ride away. The banners will wave, the trumpets will sound, the people will cheer. To them, it will look like triumph. To you, it will feel like a funeral, not of a life ended, but of a life surrendered. And as you take those first steps beyond the gates, you will carry the memory of the stone walls, the hearth smoke, the voices of those who raised you. They will echo inside you long after the sound of the castle fades, a reminder that once you were a child within these walls, and now you are a promise bound to another world. The morning of departure arrives, not with fanfare, but with a quiet heaviness that seems to press upon every corner of the castle. The corridors are hushed, the servants move quickly, but with lowered voices, as if they know this is not simply a day of ceremony, but a day of loss. Outside, the air is sharp, the sky pale with the first light of dawn. A frost clings to the ground, making every stone glisten as though nature itself has dressed in finery for your leaving. You stand by the narrow window of your chamber, wrapped in a mantle of fur, watching the courtyard come alive below. Horses stamp and snort clouds into the cold. Banners are unfurled and tested in the wind. Trunks are strapped to wagons. The sound of metal buckles, the clinking of harnesses, the barked orders of captains all merge into a steady rhythm, a heartbeat of departure. Your ladies in waiting hover about you, fastening the last pins in your veil, arranging the fall of your cloak so that it lies perfectly, smoothing the folds of the gown that has been chosen for this day. Every thread has been selected to speak of wealth, of power, of continuity. You are not leaving as a daughter, but as an envoy, wrapped in the very symbols of your family's authority. When you look at your reflection in the polished silver mirror, you barely recognize the solemn, glittering figure staring back. She is not a girl, but an emblem prepared for display. The chapel bells toll, long and resonant, calling everyone to the courtyard. The sound echoes through the valley beyond the castle walls, carrying the news of your departure to fields and villages far below. You descend the staircase slowly, your ladies holding the edges of your gown so it does not trail on the cold stone. At the base, your parents wait. Your father stands tall, his face set in the expression of a ruler rather than a father. He does not embrace you. Instead, he places a hand on your shoulder, heavy, firm, as if bestowing a command rather than affection. Your mother's eyes glisten, but she does not let the tears fall. Her last gift is restraint, teaching you even now how to carry sorrow without breaking under its weight. The crowd gathers thick in the courtyard. Knights in armor gleam in the pale sun. Retainers line up with banners bearing your family's crest. And beyond them, peasants press together, craning their necks for a glimpse. You hear there murmurs the awe of seeing so much splendor, the pity of watching a young woman depart into the unknown. The indifference of those who know this is just another exchange of power far removed from their daily lives. To them, you are both spectacle and irrelevance. To you, they are both witness and strangers. Their cheers rise when your father raises his hand and the sound strikes your chest like a blow. They cheer not for you, but for what you carry, for the alliance you symbolize. When the moment comes, you are led to your horse. It is draped in velvet and embroidered cloth, the bridle worked with silver. A footman kneels to help you mount, and you gather the layers of your gown with practiced care. From the high seat, the world looks different. The walls that once towered over you now seem smaller, as though you have outgrown them overnight. You feel the eyes of everyone upon you, servants, knights, peasants, your own family, and the weight of their gaze is heavier than the gown, heavier than the jewels. You raise your chin because you must. Grace is no longer a virtue but a shield. The procession begins with a long blast of horns. The gates creak open, their iron teeth parting with a sound that feels like the ripping of fabric. The company moves forward, hooves striking sparks on the stones, banners snapping in the cold air. You ride in the center, surrounded by guards and attendants, your ladies-in-waiting trailing behind in carriages. To anyone watching, it is a magnificent Saita river of color and sound flowing out of the castle. To you, it feels like being carried in a cage with invisible bars. As you pass through the gates, you glance back. The towers rise against the morning sky, gray and solid, the same as they have always been. But for you, they are already becoming memory. The place that defined you, confined you, raised you, is receding with every step of your horse. You feel a tightening in your throat, but you do not cry. Tears would be seen, and weakness is not part of the performance. Instead, you let the image of the castle burn itself into your mind, the turrets, the banners fluttering, the faint shimmer of frost on the battlements. You tell yourself you will remember it forever, though you know memory can fade like worn tapestry. The road stretches ahead, winding through fields and forests that you once glimpsed only from windows. Villagers line the path, bowing or curtsying, some tossing sprigs of herbs or flowers. Children run alongside for a few steps before being pulled back by parents. Their laughter is shrill against the solemnity of the procession. And for a fleeting moment, you envy them, their freedom to run where they wish. You, in contrast, move at the measured pace, dictated by ceremony, every step rehearsed, every gesture watched. Hours pass. The rhythm of hooves becomes hypnotic, the creak of wagons a constant undercurrent. The countryside unfolds bare winter trees scratching the pale sky, distant smoke rising from cottages, fields lying fallow under frost. It is beautiful and yet strangely empty, a world vast and indifferent. Within your retinue there is chatter, the clatter of armor, the occasional burst of laughter. But for you, the sound blurs into background. You are wrapped in silence inside yourself, alone in the midst of the crowd. At midday, the company halts in a clearing where a pavilion has been erected for your rest. Servants bustle to prepare food to ensure you are comfortable. You are offered warmed wine, bread, roasted fowl, but your appetite is gone. Instead, you watch the banners ripple in the wind, their colors stark against the winter sky. They are beautiful, but they are not yours. They belong to your father, to your family, to the alliance that now carries you away. You eat a little because it is expected, because everything is expectation. When the journey resumes, the road grows rougher, climbing into hills. The wheels of wagons grind against stones. Horses snort and struggle. The air grows colder. You pull your cloak tighter and endure. The weight of the gown grows heavier, pressing into your shoulders, reminding you that even your clothing is a burden of duty. At one steep turn, the procession slows, and you glimpse again the castle in the distance. Far away now, a gray silhouette fading into the horizon. It is no longer a place you can return to. It is a story you once lived. As dusk approaches, the company prepares to camp. Another pavilion is raised for you, lined with carpets, filled with braziers for warmth. Your ladies fuss, unpacking necessities, arranging your bedding. Outside, men-at-arms build fires, the smell of smoke and roasting meat drifting through the camp. You step outside for a moment, looking at the darkening sky. The first stars prick through, faint but steady. You think of the nights at the castle, staring from your window at these same constellations. Now, under open sky, they feel larger, more remote. They are constant, yet you feel smaller beneath them, adrift on a path chosen for you. In the firelight, the men laugh, drink, sharpen their swords. Life for them is simple: march, guard, fight if needed. For you, it is endless performance. You return to your pavilion, to the comfort that is not comfort, to the silence of a bed that will never be yours. You lie down, listening to the muffled sounds of the camp, the crackle of fire, the low murmur of voices. Your body is weary, but your mind spins. You think of the castle gates closing behind you, of the faces that watched you leave, of the truth that you are not simply traveling to a new home, but being delivered into another life entirely. And as sleep finally overtakes you, you realize that the departure was not just a journey from one place to another. It was a severing, a quiet but absolute break from all that you knew. You are no longer the girl of the castle. You are the bride-to-be of a foreign land, a moving piece of gold wrapped in silk, carried forward by the will of others. The road stretches on, and you with it, toward a destiny that is yours in name but never in choice. The procession that carries you away from your childhood home stretches farther than your eyes can see. Horses snort clouds of steam into the morning air, their hooves striking a rhythm that feels like a drumbeat of inevitability. carriages groan under the weight of trunks filled with gowns, jewels, altar cloths, and tapestries, all the material tokens of your station bundled together like dowry offerings. Knights ride at the flanks, their armor glinting as the pale light of dawn wrestles with the lingering mist. The sound of banners snapping in the wind follows you like a song you cannot escape, each embroidered crest declaring your father's house, as though reminding everyone, including yourself, of the power you leave behind. The villagers line the road as you pass. Some bow low, their faces unreadable in the morning haze. Others crane their necks for a glimpse of the princess who is leaving them forever. To them, you are both familiar and distant. The child they once saw carried through these lands in a swaddled bundle, now transformed into a woman robed in velvet. Some children laugh and point at your glittering carriage, while others shrink back, as if unsure whether you are flesh and blood or some holy relic being transported to a shrine. You catch their eyes and wonder whether you envy their freedom or they envy your grandeur. The truth is likely neither. They cannot imagine the cage you ride in, and you cannot fathom a life of mud and toil. Inside the carriage, the air is heavy. Perfume clings to the fabrics, trying in vain to mask the mingled scents of leather, wool, and dust that rise with every jolt of the wheels. Beside you sits your governess, now little more than a shadow of the authority she once held. She will not remain with you forever. Her role ends once you are delivered into the hands of strangers. For now, though, her presence is a familiar anchor. Across from you sits a lady-in-waiting assigned to travel with you, her expression polite but distant. She is already rehearsing her place in a new court, perhaps wondering how her loyalty to you will be weighed against her duty to your future. Husband's household, the journey is long. Days stretch into weeks, the road winding through forests that smell of pine and damp earth, across rivers swollen with spring melt, past villages where peasants pause in their work to gape at the glittering line of nobility. At night, when you stop at castles or monasteries, you are received with ceremony. There are always feasts, smaller than those of your father's hall, but no less oppressive. The food changes, thicker stews here, spiced sausages there, bread baked darker or lighter, depending on the land, but the weight of expectation never shifts. You are toasted again and again, praised for your beauty, your grace, your role as peacemaker. You smile when prompted, bow when required, thank each host with rehearsed words of humility. The ritual repeats until it begins to feel like an endless performance. Sometimes you ride on horseback instead of remaining in the carriage. The air feels freer, the world closer. The rhythm of the animal beneath you brings a fleeting sense of control. Yet even then, you are never alone. Guards flank you, banners surround you, eyes follow your every move. The countryside unfolds around Uroling hills, scattered farms, wild meadows, but you cannot slip into anonymity. You are always the princess on display. Even the peasants who scatter out of your path leave you with no illusions of invisibility. You pass through their lives like a comet, dazzling for a moment and then gone, leaving behind no trace except whispers. The language changes as you move farther from home. At first, it is only a shift in accent, a turn of phrase that sounds strange to your ears. Then, gradually, the words around you become harder to grasp. The peasants chatter in dialects you cannot follow. Local lords greet you with speeches you half understand, their words flowing past you like water over stone. Translators murmur in your ear, but their voices are never quick enough, never quite precise. You nod at the right moments, smile at the right pauses, but the gulf between you and those around you widens with each mile. You are adrift in sound, a foreigner even before you cross the final border at night. When the feasting dies down and you are finally permitted to retreat, you lie awake in borrowed chambers. The beds smell of strangers. The tapestries on the walls depict saints or battles you do not recognize. You listen to the creak of beams, the rustle of wind against shutters, the muffled snores of guards posted in the corridor. Everything is unfamiliar, yet it all points in the same direction, forward, toward a life you cannot turn back from. You press your face into the pillow and inhale, wishing for the scent of your own chamber at home, lavender wool, the faint must of old stone, but all you breathe is distance. Gifts are exchanged along the road. Nobles present you with tokens meant to honor and flatter, gilded chalices, bolts of silk, carved reliquaries containing the bones of minor saints. You accept each one with rehearsed gratitude, though inside you wonder whether they see you as a person or simply as another gift in return, wrapped in velvet and jewels, destined to be handed over to a man you do not know. You think of yourself as a chalice, a reliquary, a bolt of silk, valuable, admired, but not free. There are moments of quiet beauty amid the spectacle. Once, while the procession pauses at a river crossing, you step from your carriage and stand on the bank, watching the water rush past. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of wet stone and alder trees. For a moment, no one speaks. The knights are busy tending the horses. The ladies fuss with their gowns, and you are simply there, breathing. You crouch and dip your fingers into the current. The cold bites at your skin, startling and real. It is a fleeting reminder that beneath the layers of ritual and expectation, you are still alive, still capable of feeling the world directly. You clutch that sensation like a secret. As the miles roll by, your anticipation sharpens into dread. Each castle you pass brings you closer to the one that will no longer be a stop, but a home. Each cheer from peasants reminds you that you are not being welcomed as yourself, but as what you represent. Peace, alliance, fertility, continuity words that weigh heavier than your heaviest gown. You find yourself staring at your hands, at the pale skin stretched over delicate bones, and wondering whether they belong to you at all. They are hands trained for embroidery, for signing documents, for carrying rosaries. Will they ever be allowed to hold something simply because you desire it? The women who travel with you talk among themselves, their voices rising and falling like waves. Sometimes you catch fragments of gossip about the court you are approaching. They speak of its splendor, its intrigues, the fashions worn by its ladies, the temper of its ruler. They speak of your future husband, though always in cautious tones. He is said to be serious, devout, perhaps stern. Some claim he is kind, others that he is distant. No one knows for certain. You listen without comment, but inside you twist with unease. You are riding not toward a man, but toward a mystery. And the mystery has the power to shape the rest of your life. One evening, as you prepare to retire, Your governess lingers by your bedside. Her face is lined, her eyes shadowed by years of service, but there is warmth in her expression. She does not lecture you this time, does not remind you of duty. Instead, she simply says, "Do not forget who you are, even when they tell you what you must be." The words strike you like an arrow. You nod, unable to reply, afraid that if you open your mouth, the tears you have been swallowing for weeks will pour out and never stop. She presses your hand gently, then leaves. You lie awake, repeating her words, clinging to them like a talisman the next morning. The road curves, and suddenly you see the horizon shift. Rising out of the mist is the silhouette of a great city, walls high and crowned with towers, banners snapping in the wind. Your heart thunders in your chest. This is it, the destination, the place where you will no longer be a daughter of your father's house, but the consort of another. Trumpets sound in the distance, echoing across the fields. Your entourage quickens its pace, armor clinking hooves, striking harder. The people begin to gather along the road in greater numbers, their cheers swelling like a tide. You press your hand to the window of your carriage and feel the vibration of the wheels, the clatter of the road, the pull of history dragging you forward. The castle you left behind is now nothing more than memory. Ahead lies a world that will demand everything of you. You take a slow breath, steadying yourself, and whisper silently into the din of voices and trumpets. I am still here. I am still myself. But even as you say it, you know that by the time the gates close behind you, the self you cling to may be all but invisible, hidden beneath the crown, the veil, the title of bride, and, soon enough, wife. The gates rise before you like the jaws of some ancient beast, iron teeth set into stone, waiting to close behind you. The procession slows, hooves striking the cobbles with deliberate weight, the creak of wheels echoing in the vaulted archway. Trumpets blare from the ramparts, the sound so sharp it rattles your ribs. Beyond the walls, the city stretches, crowded and chaotic. But here at the gate, everything feels staged, choreographed to impress. Guards stand in gleaming rows, their armor polished to mirrors. Heralds in bright livery unfurl banners, each emblazoned with the crest of your husband's house. The sight steals the air from your lungs. You have arrived. The crowd is dense along the street, a river of faces pressed close, all jostling to glimpse the new princess. Some cheer, some cross themselves, some merely stare. You try to meet their eyes, to offer a nod, a smile, something human, but there are too many, and the distance between you and them feels insurmountable. You are elevated, enclosed, paraded. They are free to murmur whatever they will about your appearance, your posture, the worth of the alliance you embody. You wonder whether they see you as flesh or as a symbol stitched from silk and expectation. Inside the city walls, the air thickens. The smell of roasting meats, fresh bread, dung, tallow, and spices all mingle until your head swims. Musicians play from wooden balconies, their lutes and shawms straining against the roar of the crowd. Flower petals rain down from upper windows, some clinging damply to your gown, others crushed into the cobblestones beneath your carriage wheels. Children dart through the press of bodies, their laughter carrying above the din. You ache to leap down and scatter among them, to lose yourself in a tide of motion and laughter, but your hands remain folded. your smile fixed. The procession winds its way upward toward the heart of the city, the castle looming ever larger on its hill. Its towers pierce the sky, their stones darkened by centuries of smoke and rain. You watch as sunlight catches on the leaded glass of its chapel windows. The sight should inspire awe. Instead, it presses on you like a weight, reminding you that from this day forward, these stones will be your walls. When at last the carriage halts in the great courtyard, you are helped down by gloved hands. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, slick with flower petals, and damp from the morning mist. You steady yourself, aware of hundreds of eyes upon you. A line of courtiers stretches before you, their clothing a riot of color and texture, velvets, brocades, pearls, feathers, each trying to outshine the other. They bow as one, a ripple of deference that sweeps through the air like a wave. Behind them, the servants stand in orderly rows, eyes lowered, hands clasped. The hierarchy is unmistakable, even at a glance. And then you see him. Your husband-to-be steps forward, tall and grave, his expression carved from stone. His garments are rich but restrained, a doublet of dark velvet trimmed with fur, a chain of office heavy across his chest. His hair is neatly combed, his posture perfect. You search his face for warmth, for welcome, for any trace of the boy you once imagined when you were told you would marry a prince. What you find instead is distance. His gaze lingers on you, not with affection, but with calculation, as though weighing the worth of a treaty sealed in flesh. He bows, precise, measured. You curtsy, sinking into the layers of fabric until your knees ache. For a moment, silence hangs between you, broken only by the flutter of banners and the murmur of the crowd. Then he offers his hand. You place yours upon it, the gesture, formal, practiced. His grip is cool, firm, neither harsh nor gentle. A union is enacted, not between two souls, but between two houses. Together, you turn toward the great doors of the castle. They swing open with ponderous grandeur, revealing a hall vast enough to swallow you whole. Candles blaze in iron chandeliers, their smoke coiling into the rafters. The walls are draped with tapestries depicting battles and saints, reminders of both power and piety. At the far end, a dais waits, 2 chairs side by side, thrones for the future king and queen. The symbolism is stark, and as you walk the length of the hall with your husband beside you, you feel the eyes of every courtier following, measuring, judging, The feast begins almost at once. Long tables groan under the weight of roasted swans, peacocks with gilded feathers, venison, spiced pies, trenchers of bread piled high. Servants move in orchestrated precision, pouring wine, presenting platters, clearing scraps. Minstrels play, their melodies weaving through the clang of knives and the hum of conversation. You are seated at the high table beside your husband, elevated above the sea of faces. Your goblet is never empty, your plate never bare, yet you taste nothing. Every movement lifting a spoon, dabbing your lips, murmuring thanks, feels rehearsed. Mechanical. The courtiers lean forward, eager to catch your every word, your every gesture. Some smile with thinly veiled calculation, others whisper behind jeweled hands. You hear fragments, speculation about your dowry, your beauty, your prospects of bearing heirs. Their eyes flicker to your belly even as you lift a bite of bread, you become acutely aware of your body, of its role not as yours, but as a vessel for dynasty. The thought chills you more than the draft seeping through the hall's high windows. Your husband speaks little. When he does, it is formal, directed more to the nobles than to you. He raises his goblet to toast the alliance, his voice steady, authoritative. The hall erupts in cheers. You lift your own goblet, smile as you have been taught, and drink. The wine burns down your throat, sharp and sweet, and you swallow the weight of expectation with it. As the feast drags on, you retreat into observation. You watch the courtiers with their elaborate gestures, their laughter pitched too high, their alliances forming and breaking in the span of a conversation. You see the servants gliding between them, invisible yet indispensable, their faces blank masks of obedience. You see the minstrels, their smiles fixed as their fingers pluck endless notes. The court is a theater, every role scripted, every movement calculated, and you, newly arrived, are its newest player. When the meal at last ends, when the final toasts have been raised and the last platters cleared, you are led from the hall. The corridors twist like veins through the body of the castle, torchlight flickering on stone walls. Your ladies follow, fussing with your gown, whispering in hushed voices. At last, you are shown into your new chambers. The doors close behind you with a weighty thud, sealing you inside. The room is grand, draped with heavy curtains, the bed a towering structure of carved oak and embroidered linens. A fire burns in the hearth, its smoke mingling with the scent of beeswax and rosewater. Yet, despite the splendor, the chamber feels cold, unfamiliar. You walk slowly across the rush-strewn floor, fingers grazing the polished wood of the furniture. This will be your world now. These walls will witness your triumphs and your sorrows, your secrets and your silences. When at last you are alone, or as alone as a princess can ever be, you sink onto the edge of the bed. Your hands tremble in your lap. The weight of the day presses upon you, heavier than any crown. You think of the journey, of the faces you passed, of the words your governess whispered on your last night together. Do not forget who you are. You close your eyes and repeat it silently, again and again, until it feels like a prayer beyond the window. The city murmurs, 1,000 lives unfolding in streets and houses you may never walk freely. Somewhere in the depths of the castle, laughter still echoes from the feast, and here you sit at the threshold of a life that is no longer yours to shape. You inhale slowly, steadying your breath, and lift your chin. Tomorrow will bring new ceremonies, new expectations, new eyes watching. But tonight, in the quiet, you allow yourself to feel the weight of your own heart, fragile yet stubborn. You are not only a treaty, not only a bride, not only a jewel in another's crown. You are still yourself, though the world may try to bury that truth beneath layers of silk and duty. For the first time since the journey began, tears slip down your cheeks, silent and unstoppable. You let them fall, each one a tiny act of defiance. And as you lie back on the unfamiliar bed, the fire casting shadows on the walls, you whisper into the silence, I will endure. I will remember. I will not disappear.